So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tool Talk session. We are coming after a gap of 2 months, but definitely we are coming with a excellent topic on packaging industry. So the topic for today's session is tooling for packaging industry. And in this session, we'll learn about the plastic packaging industry, what packaging industry expects from the tool makers, what skill sets are required, and what it takes to build and design molds and tools for the rigid plastic packaging industry. And for that, we have Mr. Santhosh Raj, who is the technical center head of Alpla Hyderabad division. Welcome, Mr. Santhosh.
Yeah, thanks, Nishant, for having me. Thank you.
Right. So thanks for, first of all, thanks for accepting our invitation. And interestingly, as I told you, you're the first guest in this Tool Talk session from the packaging industry. So definitely it is going to be interesting for all of us to learn from you. And now I would like to invite Mr. Shan Sundaram, who is Vice President of Tractor India, to say a few words about Mr. Santosh. Mr. Shan.
Good evening to one and all.
Good evening.
It's nice to welcome Mr. Santhosh Raj for this evening event of Tool Talk. Mr. Santhosh Raj is a mechanical engineer graduate from the University of Chennai from SIPET, Chennai, with over 25 years of experience in the domain of plastics in various fields of molding and molds. He has a vast, great experience in quality assurance, part inspection, testing, tool proving, design, product development, and production under production environment. He is working with ALPLA Alpha for the past 17 years as a head of Technical Center Hyderabad. Previously, he worked with organizations such as Elcott High Tech Tool Room, Milton Plastics Limited, and BIC Writing Instruments. Welcome, Mr. Santhosh Raj. Nice to have. Thanks for your time spending with us. We would like to interact.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shan. Thank you so much. So before we start the conversation, to the audience, if you have any questions, please post those in the chat bar. And of course, Mr. Santosh can address those questions at the end of this session. So shall we start, Mr. Santosh?
Yeah, perfect, Nishant. Thanks for the
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Shan. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you, and also the management for giving this opportunity to be part of your prestigious Tool Talk. And quite happy to share experiences, and let's see how things evolve. And of course, I've seen the previous edition inputs and all. I see that they are more focused on automobile, aerospace, and as Nishant said, this is the first edition of packaging, and that too into rigid plastics. Of course, it's something most of the joinees or whoever is participating in the event would be knowing about it, but still could be different from the other packaging styles what we have in the market. But this is a consumer oriented packaging, so at least everybody will be involved into this.
Right. And as you rightly said, yes, previously most of our speakers were from automotive industry, and that's why we are more excited for today's session, because packaging is one of the largest industry, consumer for the tools as well. So definitely a lot to learn from you. So, Mr. Santosh, to start with, let us learn more about your company and its tooling division, because you are representing Alpla Global, which is one of the largest, packaging company in the world. So, would you like to tell us more about your company and the business areas and the kind of tools you manufacture, your activities in India?
Okay, good. I think a small introduction will always help, I think, for the audiences to understand. And once again, a warm afternoon for all the joinees, and hope it should be an exciting session. If I'm very optimistic about it. So what Alpla is about is we are a 67-year-old company, the headquartered based out of Austria, and the basic purpose is to bring plastic goods for service into packaging industry. What we cater to customers, basically local Indian multinational and local companies as well, which in turn they supply products to consumers like all of us. So the main scope of business is making bottles, caps, and also preforms in the space of injection molding, blow molding, injection stretch blow molding, injection blow molding, and also anything related to PET, etc. So this is our main scope of business. We are into rigid plastic packaging and not like the poly bags and others who are into the flexible industry. So
Right.
that's our field of business, and we have presence in 42 countries, and we have close to around 185 plants worldwide, and basically into all the geographies, including the three Americas, Europe, Asia, and also in Africa. Australia is also supported by our Southeast Asia region. So this is our major footprint presence, and top line of 4 billion euros as of last year, and 21,000 employees worldwide. A short glimpse about India: we are 17 years into the industry in India, with Alpla setting up its first facility in the north of India, Baddi, in 2005. I am still from the starting of Alpla in India. And along with this, we have currently 10 facilities within Alpla, and currently headquarters out of Hyderabad in India. And we have, along with the production facilities, we also have a mold shop, which is an injection mold shop, which we started since end of 2000 during the pandemic time. And since the last few years, we are also having one new integrated manufacturing site based out of Silvassa, which is basically producing plastic components and also filling in the same site. This is basically aimed at sustainability, etc. And India, we started business close to around 30 crores and now close to around 1300 crores as of this year. So that's the growth we have had, and there is huge scope for this packaging field to grow further. And of course, the key to success in this scope is based on tooling and also effective manufacturing processes. I think we'll go through this more in detail. So this is a short glimpse about Alpla. I think, Nishant, the 2 minutes should be worth enough. Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us information about your company. And as you rightly said, there is a definitely huge scope for us to grow in the packaging industry. So, next question would be with environmental norms and design changes happening in the plastic packaging industry, and since you have experience of 17 years working in the packaging industry, please share some of the trends that are taking shape in the plastic packaging industry.
Okay, I think that's a very relevant question here, and especially packaging means, I would say, containing any product which anybody can use it. Either it is in a form of a shampoo bottle, or is in the form of a pesticide, or into something into medical appliances, devices, etc. But
Right.
what we see as a huge trend since the last few years is the ability to go with more functional products. I mean, the plastic packaging having more functionality involved into it, basically focusing on lightweighting, because we always see that any packaging format doesn't exist for a longer time. There is always a life cycle of 3 years, 5 years, based on the customers who change the designs, who change the formats, etc. So this is always a big change scope, that anytime we go into a change of a pack or going with the same pack, we always aim at bringing in more value add on sustainability, going into lightweighting wherever it is possible. Lightweighting means not just reducing the weight, but trying to make this pack more durable with some design changes, adaptations, etc. And when it comes to the tooling side, for sure, we always work with the range of class 101 molds, where in the cycles are more than 1 million shots is what is an expectation. Normally, we talk about 3 to 5 million shots in our field of business for the tool life, and then comes the extended tool life with more refurbishment, etc. So that's more on this new trends, I would say. Then what we also need is high process reliability. Not, I mean, it's a combination between the tool as well as the machining or the molding processes, which brings in this. In addition to this, we also talk about consistent output. And this is very important as far as the tooling industry for our field of business is concerned, because we work with high cavitation tools. Normally, a pilot tool or a tool to bring in a proof of principle in our field of business can be a single cavity up to a 4 cavity as well. Depends on the field of business. But when it comes to the production format or mass production format in commercialization, the tools can go as high as 196 cavities. And in India, we still have molds running very successfully up to 128 cavities. So these are things which we work on high volumes, but it's very difficult to, I would say, if there are some reliability issues, it's quite difficult to find out as well. So definitely that's very important that you have a very high level of consistent output. And addition to this, what we need is tools running in auto mode. Means it everything has to go untouched. That's very important that the whole scheme of production happens without touching the components. It has to be fully automated. That means there can be no cycle which can be stopped or distorted. So these are things which we aim at because it's a high volume and high consistent quality output network what we work with, and that's quite important for us. I think this could give some idea about the whole things what is new. But we at Alpla definitely aim to bring in more value add as and when it comes in the field of tools, process, and as such in terms of infrastructure, everything associated with.
Right, right, right. Right.
Thank you.
So thanks. As we know that building tools for every industry requires different types of skills and need different infrastructure. So in packaging industry, what is it like to design and build molds for the plastic rigid packaging industry?
Okay. I think that's also a very nice question. I think building molds, yeah, that's the key to success for sure. For example, we have different types of technologies which we work on. That is what we call as core technologies. The one is extrusion blow molding, which we make HDP, PP bottles. Then ISBM, injection stretch blow molding, which we make also the PET bottles. PET preforms through the injection process, caps and closures through the injection process, and also IBM technology, the injection blow molding, also through the blowing process through an injection assisted one. And all of them definitely needs a tool design which is as per a certain standard, because certain areas we also work with standard machines. I mean, some of the technologies where we have our own machines available in the market. It's only for us to use. So we have a specific mold standards to follow. So all of these standards are through a certain CAD process we work on. And into this also very important is the product design, which is the right, I would say, the stepping stone into any product development or a successful supply of products from it. So the product design is very much done with much more accuracy or more idea and understanding due to our bandwidth, specifically within Alpla through a larger decades of working. And then what we are also able to do is to bring this product design into through a simulation process. So that's very important to make sure that the design what we have done is also able to be done in a more realized way and bringing in the right consistent output. That's what we look into the simulation topics, into any sort of things that this can be enhanced further. We do repeated modeling, then come bring these models into the tooling activity where the designs are being worked out quite nicely. And with standards means, of course, if it's the case of the injection mold, I'm sure most of the viewers will be from the injection molding background. So there are the standard parts, there are the standard stacks, plus also the mold bases, plus the hot runner systems. All these needs to go through a very clear specified phase, and we bring there a huge level of standardization when it comes to building a tool. So that's more emphasized right from the design of the tooling itself. And when we go into a next step to assemble and then go to this way of working into tool proving, we also make sure that there is a certain level of design of experiments run, being tested in different pressure, temperature levels, the ejection cycles, everything being worked out, overall cycle times being worked out, so that you are able to bring in a better process window to run with high cavitation in production phase. So this is quite important that we work in ways which are very important to the whole scheme, and the whole life cycle. Normally we try to get it mapped, monitored, and also being controlled. So that's where it also plays that it's not just making with the mold. We do an analysis post establishment of the mold through this life cycle and see what further adaptations can be done when we go to the same set of tools or go for a similar design tools for the future.
Okay. Okay. Right. Thanks for sharing all these technical details. And I would now say that let's get a little deeper in that. And my next question would be, what kind of tools plastic packaging industry needs? Can you please share some details?
Okay, so I think I can speak a lot from my experience here. Yeah, for sure, the packaging industry needs, of course, when there are different types of processes which I have explained, but when it comes to the industrial needs, or I would say what the customer needs, because we are a customer facing organization and without them we don't exist. So when a client is successful, we are even successful, and that's what we fully believe in. And normally when it comes to injection molds where we have caps and closures, it can be with monocolor, it can be with bicolor flip tops. We have two color packaging, and we are proud to say here that in India we are the largest in two color component manufacturing for the plastic packaging industry. So we have quite a lot of systems working in India, and we are quite competent enough to handle such a packaging needs for the industry in terms of monocolor, bicolor, closures, etc. Then, of course, there are preforms, which can also be mono injection colored ones or can also be co-injected ones with two colors as well. And the extrusion blow molding, of course, as you know, there are bottles with single layers, two layers, multi layers, and many other things which can work out on these things. Then there are needs for tools in canisters, jars, edible oils. Then, of course, all these PET bottles, they also need a lot of tooling around because those designs change very fast and frequently. Then, of course, these are mostly in the FMCG industry. Then there are a set of requirements for pharma, which a little bit different on the whole landscape there in pharma. Then, of course, we also have crop protection, pesticides, insecticides, etc. Because I was speaking about sustainability, lightweighting, etc. during the start. Because especially these packs would need thicker bottles because they fill in quite a lot of aggressive chemicals, which needs to take care of the package needs to take care of these products inside so that they don't de-shape or go into anything. And also when it comes to the packaging formats, the designs are also very important, the product designs. Specifically, the design shape matters a lot. And this is very critical for clients to bring in more value add for their scale of business. So if you ask me, there are typically many different needs in the plastic tooling industry for packaging, and it's an evolving thing because there is a lot of modernization and attractiveness needed, especially in the space of cosmetics or FMCG. And overall it is quite a new thing because we also work a lot with brand owners and end consumers also. Their needs normally keeps changing as and when the decade moves forward, and we always try to be ahead of this situation there.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So till now we have learned about what kind of tools are needed in the packaging industry, specifically for the rigid plastics packaging. So now let's talk a little bit about the business. So in your organization, how do you qualify a supplier, specifically in the tooling domain? What kind of skill sets or infrastructure you look into when you onboard any tool maker as your supplier?
Okay, so Of course, we make our own molds as much as possible, but everything is not possible by us, because certain cases it can also be that we need some capacities from other tool makers also. And one good thing within Alpla, what we have is, since we have geographical presence in many countries, we ideally look into a certain level of standardization, or maybe not certain level, I should say highest level of standardization, because we have flexibility to move machines and molds to different geographies. I mean, this is very unique. It's more like the McDonald's model, which we can say that everywhere you see an Alpla facility can be similar. But coming to this topic, we also make sure that when we qualify a mold maker, he should be able to, of course, support with tools supplying to, for example, in India as well as to Colombia, and as well as in Europe. And they should also have a certain bandwidth also to support after sales service also. These are some of the small elements which we need to look into. But otherwise, technically speaking, we need to look into the capabilities of designing, ability to adapt our mold standards, what we are expecting from our own production sites. Then also it comes to a situation where we need to look into their processes, their list of machinery, and many other aspects along. So this is something which normally helps, that we have a list to follow. This is also supported by global IM experts, EBM experts, and ISBM experts we have. And this qualification also involves some understanding about their challenging projects, what they have done, how successful have they been in the market, and what is their scale of business. Because it's not just the technical front we look into, the capability to associate with us will also need that they will also be looked into as partners. We don't work into a supplier relation, we look into partnership. And basically this also helps that we know each other very well before we join into a good understanding here. But technically we need to first be sure that we are able to get the right output from the tool maker. And of course we do the visits both ends, vice versa, which also helps to understand and capitalize how we move forward. So this is one key area there. And then of course the important aspects is to understand how they are able to work with our understanding, and quite bring in a lot of sense on confidentiality for our project specifically.
Okay,
Thanks.
right, right. So thanks for letting us know about how to become supplier for Alpla. So in your
Yeah.
opinion, since you are working with a lot of tool makers in India, do you think that Indian dam mold manufacturers are fully equipped to serve the demands of the packaging industry?
I would say that yes, to some extent, that
Okay,
there is a big range. I would say there are, I wouldn't, I would say that medium, large, and extra large capabilities are there within India, but they are, I would say, India as a hemisphere has a lot of technical bandwidth. Commercial bandwidth is something is has to be capitalized in the near future. But when it comes to the actual core of business, what we see from our high cavitation tools, etc., we still have a lot of scope to improve on the reliability levels when it comes to productivity from the tools. We see that there are big players who are able to capitalize on this, but medium players are working on this. One good positive thing what I see is that people are eager to learn and capitalize on their capabilities and strengths. But it will be needed that we have to a bit more focus on having these tool makers bring in their own strengths more, rather than trying to attract somebody else's domain and work forward with multiple capabilities. So what I would say is that we should focus on bringing more value add on what they are very strong at. Possibly they can outsource the remaining stuff to somebody else. For example,
okay,
in Alpla, when we make a blow mold, we have the capability to make the neck somewhere in one of the mold shops, the body somewhere, and the base somewhere, and we are able to assemble it and get into perfection. So these level of multiple collaboration within the mold making fraternity would also be a needed advantage. Then things can go better. The other aspect what we see also is that the tool makers should also look into a little bit of work on low cost automation or cost effective automation in their internal processes, which should also help to at least reduce their a bit of resources internally, and also try to bring a sophistication on the levels of quality of their output. So this is another thing. And yeah, I think as I told, the gaining of their internal processes and bringing those processes to a certain level on their mold making capability will also help to cater to the industry. And this is also important not just for the mold maker, because for a mold making maker there is also a backup from the right from the raw material source to standard part manufacturers and many other outsourced parts also. So there is an overall trend which needs to evolve, but it is in the process of evolving, and we are seeing a trend that the last couple of decades there has been quite a big shift in the Indian industry, and things will keep moving, that we are quite optimistic of.
Okay, so thanks for giving us this information. So many, largest companies in almost every domain have their own in-house tool rooms, and they to cater to their own demand. In your opinion, what will be the trend going forward for these large companies, for example, Alpla as well, to continue to invest in their own tool room, or maybe, work with the commercial tool rooms for their tooling needs? How do you see the trend going forward?
Okay, nice question. I think, as I said in the last thing, we should not be trying to make sure that we are an expert in everything. So for sure, we try to see what we are capable to do, and we have our in-house mold shops in quite out of Europe. We also have mold shops, as I mentioned in the start. We have one injection mold shop since end of 2020 in Hyderabad. Then additionally, we also have mold shops in Mexico as well as in China, Shanghai. So these mold shops helps to serve the region, the needs from those regions, and also being able to cater to other regional needs also. But all these don't suffice the requirements for our own consumption. So of course, this is a must and good to have, but we will expand the tool room horizon on our captive consumption, that's for sure, in the coming years. But when it comes to outsourcing, for sure it has to happen, because you can have a situation where your capacities are sold out. You cannot be really trusting and working that everything we want to do in-house. And definitely these are being given out on needs and looking into the capabilities of our own partner mold makers or tool makers, what we call. This definitely is a need of the hour, that we ideally, if we talk about, we are talking about close to 2000 to 2500 cavities in India on an annual basis we do. So that's quite high across all technologies, I mean to say. And globally, we are talking not less than 120,000 to 140,000 cavities on an annual basis. So these, everything cannot be done in-house. The other one, what we look into is also, if certain tool makers have certain specific capabilities, we also work with those tool makers on repeated projects. So it's something that we want to make sure that we have capability to balance the whole scheme of things. And definitely our venture is also to grow in-house, to bring in more value add and capabilities being added to this internal network year on year. But I also understand that there is some on the government policy, what they call as a PLI scheme. And there is something, if it is applied, then of course it can be a game changer overall in the industry. And I really don't know how this is effectively going to come in, and I'm not an expert into this, but definitely that can help a lot, that we have much more to say from the Indian industry trend.
Hello, sir.
So, yeah.
Good evening.
Okay, okay. Right. So just a couple of more questions from my side before we start taking questions from audience. And to the audience, if you have any question, please continue to post in the chat box and we'll address that later. Since you have worked so many years in this industry, you have like more than 2 decades of experience in the tooling industry. You have worked with many tools of tooling suppliers as well. So, what are your expectations, tool makers from Indian tool makers? This is so tools from them. What are your solutions? Yeah.
Okay, expectation, I would say technically we need
Sir,
to
one
be.
sec. Sir, sorry for
Okay,
inconvenience. You can go
no
ahead.
problem. So I would say the expectation is quite clear that we need to have a certain excellent level of quality from the overall output from the tool makers, which they
Right.
are trying their best. This is what I see on a continual basis. Then,
Right.
of course, we should also aim of bringing in the first time approach. So this is very crucial. This is something what we follow internally very rigorously, that whenever we
Right.
have a tool being developed, be it a pilot tool or even a commercial tool, this has to be performing the first time we put it on a molding machine to take the product. So this
Right.
is very crucial because it definitely reduces a lot of costs associated with this, and definitely reduces the lead time to a considerable extent. This is very much important that the tool makers bring in all their knowledge, everything possible, to make sure when the tool is designed, built, it's being watched thoroughly, and we get a proper output, which in turn helps the tool makers also, because the more they do trials or iterations, it's a time consuming and indirectly getting into cost structures on their affecting their bottom line for sure. So that is one important aspect of this. Then, of course, trying to bring ways to reduce cost of standard parts and overall tooling costs, etc. Because then the business scale can even go bigger, because even in the packaging industry, most of the tools or certain amount of tools are being also imported still. So that's something which can always be avoided when we go into better standardization and bring in more. It's not a question, it's only a question of lead time and cost, which and certain technical capabilities that is on a scale of 20% or so. We call about capabilities to import tools, but otherwise the quantum goes into volumes where the cost and timing has an influence. So that's something which we definitely can look into. Of course, the cost of steel and cost of other things related is not in our hands now much, because
Right.
of the spiraling prices, which has less control. But definitely the tooling industry needs to find some ways to find their internal levels to be brought into a Six Sigma. That should be the goal, that then there is a high level that we get the best output within a quicker time, and the results are very best at the first time.
Okay. So quality, efficiency is something that you would expect as the bottom line.
And the cost, for
Cost,
sure.
of course. Yeah.
Timing as well.
Right. So, you must have worked with a lot of tool makers from, out of India as well, overseas companies, and then in India as well. So, would you like to share your experience working with these overseas tool makers versus the Indian tool makers?
So I would say for sure the Indian teams are, I mean, we have a mix of all. The Indian industry, the global industry, everywhere we have a good collaboration. And
Right.
I wouldn't say that anyone is superior than the other. But what I see predominantly in the global context is that the tool makers stick to their capabilities and more focus and try to upgrade their capabilities in their respective domains. For example, I would say if a person does a packaging format, he would not like to do an automobile mold. Because here in
Okay.
India, I also see that, of course, people try to, based on their capabilities or capacity, availability, or the orders they get, they try to mix the activities around. Sometimes then it becomes certain times affecting the quality or the time, because you need a certain expertise in a certain domain. That's very important to stick to this. And
Right.
I see that on the global scenario, the mold makers may more focus on the design element. I mean, right, even on the product design, not just the mold design. So they do a lot of thorough analysis on these things, which definitely helps to get the output much better. And definitely this is one bandwidth we need to do. Then
Okay.
other thing, what I also see, apart from the machining capabilities, a certain level of improvement in communication, project management, and also a good level of transparency is needed. So this is
Okay.
something which we would also like, that the mold tooling fraternity needs to come up to serve the partner well with the right trust and transparency. So that is something very important, because for sure we are a entity which is facing a client. So if we have a challenge, it needs also to be communicated to the client. That's what we believe in. So that's very important on any issues. I mean, that's where we see that there is some or good level of scope for the tooling things to be upgraded. But otherwise, on technical capabilities, I would really applaud the team or the tooling fraternity here. Even with very limited, I would say, level machinery set, they are able to bring in very good quality tools out of it. That's because of their
Okay.
scale of business or quantum of business and their ability to do it. There is a lot of energy in the industry, and we think that definitely this will help to upgrade when some processes come in, because we want most of them to be process oriented than be person oriented. So that's very important, and bring in a certain level of standardization, how big or small the tool shop can be. So that's
Okay.
also important. So there is a lot of learning, I think, a journey which will help. But as I said earlier, also the last 10 years has seen a lot of shift on the focus areas in this packaging field, and this is an evergreen field and highly growing at a rate to 10 to 15% year on year. And that's definitely something that the tooling industry also needs to be geared up to support all the requirements.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So in this particular answer, you spoke a lot about transparency and better communication and trust. So would you like to talk a little bit in detail? What do you mean by transparency? What do you expect from tool makers in terms of transparency?
Transparency, I would say, I mean, we are not talking about commercial terms. Technically, there are some challenges. We should also be, of course, we do, whenever we do with external partners or internally, we also do design reviews on
Right.
while getting into tool development. And after this, for sure, we always have some actions being taken up after we do certain development of a tool, while they are assembled or while they are being brought into sampling or pre-sampling, the actions which are being taken to make sure that the outputs are coming good. Certain,
Right.
I wouldn't get into specifics, but we see that there is sometimes the information is not clear what about the rework activities or the kind of rework what has been done in certain fields. I mean, not that everyone has a with major mold tool makers, we don't see much of issues, but with certain tool makers who have some issues on, I mean, that's more to do with communication, I see, and things should improve.
Okay. Okay. There's definitely a learning experience for everyone in the tooling fraternity as well. So, my last question is: any message you would like to give to the Indian tooling fraternity? Any suggestion? Any any message before we end
Message, I
this?
would say, do things better. Already it's being done good. Let's do it better. So we are also part of this, because we also have our own mold shops. So definitely we we have to work together and find out how things can be done very well.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we should wish all of us the very best for the future.
Right. Right. So we have done a good job till now. We have to get better and work together, work on cost, delivery, efficiency, and productivity.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all the information. Now, without any further delay, we can take questions from the audience. One sec, I have some question. So this is a question from Mr. Siraj. He's asking any specific tool still used to achieve the 3 to 5 micro million tool life?
So Siraj, thanks for this question. Is this specific to any process or something? It's an injection mold or something 3 to 5 micron. Normally we talk about injection mold more or less, and definitely in the industry there are quite a few important grades of tools available. But what is more important is the temperature in the environment while you process the parts, while you machine the parts. Here, normally within Alpla, we talk about a plus minus 1 degree range in the shop floor. And while you machine the parts, which helps also to avoid thermal expansion and bring in a certain good level of dimensional consistency. So not just the tool alone, I would say, you also need the right environment to machine the tools very importantly.
Okay, okay. So another question from Mr. Siraj again. Other than flow simulations, which other simulations are done to finalize the part design?
So when it comes to injection, for sure, we talk about flow simulations. And there are different other process simulation associated with this, like the temperature changes in the part when it is cooled. This is also something which is important. And when it comes to a blow molding situation, we can also go into simulation for blowing capability from the blow shell, how nicely the wall thicknesses are distributed, and similar stuffs we can also check. Back to the injection thing, we can also simulate the hinge opening, closing when it comes to flip top caps. We can also simulate how much is the effort needed to cap the put the cap on the bottle, what is the capping force, decapping. Quite a lot of things can be simulated, including drop test, any other paneling tests. Quite a lot of things we do. So it's not just limited just to flow, but flow is a basic thing to find. How, where do we put in a injection point, etc. on an injection tool? That's quite necessary for sure.
Thanks. So I think Mr. Siraj has got his answer. Another question from Mr. Gopala Krishnan. He asked, normally how much time you are allowed to manufacture your tailor-made mold inserts, and what is your preferred insert material? Is it tool steel or tooling aluminum?
Sir, thanks for the question. I think the time required to machine is something what depends on the type of the insert. That's something which is not in our hands. It depends on the product design. But normally we say that, of course, we have the machining done in couple of stages. It's the pre-hardened machining and machining finishing after the hardening stage. So these are two of these stages which happen, and then come certain elements also into polishing, and then comes also certain things into something on heat treatment as well. So by the time a stack is ready, we are talking close to 3 to 4 weeks. That's something which is definitely needed. And Nishant, I think the second question was related to the type of steel, right?
Type of tool steel, yeah.
I think the hardened steel is good. There are specific grades which help for a lot on the injection process. When it comes to blow molding, we predominantly use aluminum alloys on the body. Of course, the neck and base, we try to put it on stainless steel. And when it comes to injection stretch blow molding, these are also aluminum tools and having some steel structures wherever it is necessary. So these are some areas which we work on, and I think the question had both hardened steel as well as aluminum. I think on an injection mold, we normally don't use any aluminum into it.
Okay. So another question from Mr. Hitesh. Have you considered using metal 3D printed conformal cooling channel holes and cavities to reduce cooling time and cost per components?
That's a nice question. I think this I missed to add in my talk, but that's the future. And I would say that this definitely helps to reduce the cycle times, improves on the cooling times for sure. But still, we see that in the industry, the cost of making those cores or cavities are very expensive. So this is something which we need to find as an added thing to the tooling industry to improvise on this topic to bring in more, I would say, cost saving opportunities to bring in these technologies. The other thing I would say, conformal cooling also has certain disadvantages that everything cannot be done with a conformal cooling. You need a certain design of the component, and the conformal cooling also has to be at a certain distance from the cavity, which has to be very important. It cannot be that we just think and do by ourselves. It needs a lot of understanding and capability to create this. But if you ask me, that's very a novel idea to have it. We have seen improvements, but we also have some certain challenges sometimes.
Okay. Uh, Question from Mr. Siraj again. Is there any regulation that define what type of plastics are to be used in the future? Something like plastic with certain percent of recycled materials.
Yeah, that's a favorite subject within Alpla, and just too happy to share that the last 25 years we have been working in Alpla has been working on making this post-consumer recycled plastics, which is the PCR we talk about. I think this is what I believe Siraj is asking about. These come under Pollution Control Board, and there are these new EPR guidelines which are coming into effect from 2025 onwards. That
Okay.
any plastic packaging will need to have 25% of this PCR material, and this is something coming as mandatory for many of these packs, barring some of these into foods and drinks. But for in the next 3 years, this may also come in that these are also mandatory. So Alpla as such has facilities worldwide to set up and supply close to around 25,000 tons of PCR material in different geographies. And in India also, we will soon set up a PCR facility. Currently, we are also converting close to around 8,000 tons of PCR annually, which we will also soon try to bring it from our source. Currently, they are being procured from other suppliers in India.
Right. So, question from Mr. Dhiren. He says, since you have worked with multiple local and global tool makers, have you come across any solution to expedite the mold making process? Of course, the laser sintering is faster solution available, but it is costlier at present.
Yes, I think along with the laser sintering, even the conformal cooling is also still a cost-effective process.
Right.
But I would say that faster is not possible because you need a certain time to bring in certain reliability on a certain component. And the only possibilities to make it faster will be a very good collaboration with the tool maker and be effective, and we also be clear about that we work sometimes on parallel paths. Like if you want to do a pilot tool and a production tool, try to make it go parallel with a stay. I mean, we have to do a risk assessment. That's more important in our industry that we do. That once we know that okay, we still have a certain thing which we can take a risk that we start the commercial tool. This can also be done very fast. But I am also seeing that when it comes to certain tool makers, they are not much interested in doing this, taking up these risks. But there is always certain lead time which is needed for a hot runner, it being a injection mold, because we are not talking about two cavity or four cavity. Here it is huge on cavitation. An average cavitation base, what we have is close to around between 16 to 24 equated average I'm talking about. So
Okay.
there is a lot of work everyone has to do, including the I would say the mold based supplier for the injection molds. And when we talk about our blow molds, these are all monoblock molds as large as 1.36 meters. So monoblock. So you need also certain time to get the material and also to make the tool makers needs big machines to handle all these blocks. So there are things which needs time, but I would say if there is a will, there is a way. For sure, we need a good collaboration and a good understanding customer as well as a partner. Then there is huge success in any project.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. So we'll take one or two more questions. There is one question on what is your opinion on usage of aluminum replacing pre-hardened steel insert to reduce the cycle time? Hello, Mr. Santhosh.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I got lost. I'm back.
yeah. Could you hear the question or should I
No,
repeat it?
not really, Nishant. If you can repeat once again, thank you.
Yeah, so what is your opinion on usage of aluminum replacing pre-hardened steel inserts to reduce the cycle time?
Aluminum can be used, but we don't see that aluminum is durable enough to take the components injection pressure in the cavities. For sure, that's a good transmitter of faster transmitter of heat. This is what we see on the extrusion blow molding process, and that's definitely something what we'll always use aluminum in extrusion blow molding as well as injection stretch blow molding. But when it comes to injection molding, we see very little scope to use it unless, because you need a rigidity, because these things will get softened up when you do injection at 200 to 20 degrees, and upon multiple cycles and things, we don't see a big durability there. But for sure, there should be work being done by the aluminum suppliers also to find some grades which also get into these things. But we do aluminum on soft tools, or what we call as the proto tools instead of a pilot tool. For example, you need a component in a week's time, then we work on aluminum tools also, which has less short capacities and less life on tools. That's possible, but not on a real time injection process.
Right, right. So I don't see any more question. And anyways, time is also over. So thank you so much, Mr. Santosh, for accepting our invitation and sharing your information with us. Thanks for taking us to the world of packaging tooling. It was very insightful for all of us. And from on behalf of Tagma management and Tagma family, I thank you for sharing your information with us. Thank you so much. Thanks to
Thanks,
all the
Nishant.
audience also.
Thanks, Nishant. I think it was also a privilege and honor for me to also be part of this online session. And I hope it was insightful. And any questions, you can please direct it to me, and I would be more than
Sure,
happy
sure.
to answer them.
Definitely, definitely.
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in and taking time from your busy schedule. Also, Tagma has announced Diamond India dates. It's in February 2024, and I think more than 50% is also already filled. So if you want to, book your stall, please get in touch with the Tagma office. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day. Have a nice day,
Thank
Mr.
you all.
Santhosh.
Nice day to you, all of you as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.